Hello, everyone. I hope all is well with you. I'm your host, Jocelyn, and welcome to What in the Black History. Hello, and welcome back. I do hope all is well with you. This week's topic is Chuck Berry. While Elvis Presley became the face of rock and roll, the true genius behind the art form was Chuck Berry. Considered by many as the father of rock and roll, Chuck Berry had early exposure to music at school and church. With his clever lyrics and distinct sounds, Berry became one of the most influential figures in the history of rock music. Chuck Berry was born Charles Edward Anderson Berry on October 18th of 1926 in St. Louis, Missouri. At the time of Berry's birth, St. Louis was a sharply segregated city. He grew up in a North St. Louis neighborhood called the Ville, a self-contained, middle-class black community that was a haven for black-owned businesses and institutions. The neighborhood was so segregated that Berry had never even encountered a white person until the age of 3 when he saw several white firemen put out a fire. The fourth of 6 children, Berry pursued a variety of interests and hobbies as a child. He enjoyed doing carpentry work for his father and learned photography from his uncle, Harry Davis, a professional photographer. Berry also showed an early talent for music and began singing in the church choir at the age of 6. He attended Sumner High School, a prestigious private institution that was the first all-black high school west of the Mississippi. For the school's annual talent show, Berry sang Jay McShann's Confession in the Blues while accompanied by a friend on the guitar. Although the school administration bristled at what they viewed as the song's crude content, the performance was an enormous hit with the student body and sparked Berry's interest in learning the guitar himself. He started guitar lessons soon after, studying with local jazz legend Ira Harris. Berry also grew into something of a troublemaker in high school. He was uninterested in his studies and felt constrained by the strict decorum and discipline. In 1944, at the age of 17, Berry and 2 friends dropped out of high school and set off on an impromptu road trip to California. They had gone no farther than Kansas City when they came across a pistol abandoned in a parking lot and decided to go on a robbing spree. Brandishing the pistol, they robbed a bakery, a clothing store, and a barbershop, then stole a car before being arrested by highway patrolmen. The 3 young men received the maximum penalty, 10 years in jail, despite being minors and first-time offenders. Berry served 3 years in the Intermediate Reformatory for young men outside of Jefferson, Missouri, before gaining release on good behavior on October 18th of 1947, which was his 21st birthday. He returned to St. Louis, where he worked with his father's construction business and part-time as a photographer and as a janitor at a local auto plant. In 1948, Berry married Thelmetta Toddy Suggs, with whom he would eventually have 4 children. He also took up the guitar again when in 1951, his former high school classmate, Tommy Stevens, invited him to join his band. They played at local black nightclubs in St. Louis, and Berry quickly developed a reputation for his lively showmanship. At the end of 1952, he met Johnny Johnson, a local jazz pianist, and joined his band, the Sir John's Trio. Berry revitalized the band and introduced upbeat country numbers in the band's repertoire of jazz and pop music. They played at the Cosmopolitan, an upscale black nightclub in East St. Louis, which began attracting white patrons. In the mid-1950s, Berry began taking road trips to Chicago, the Midwest capital of black music, in search of a record contract. Early in 1955, he met the legendary blues musician Muddy Waters, who suggested that Berry go meet with Chess Records. A few weeks later, Berry wrote and recorded a song, Maybelline, and took it to the executives at Chess. They immediately offered him a contract. Within months, Maybelline had reached number 1 on the R&B charts and number 5 on the pop charts. With its unique blend of a rhythm and blues beat, country guitar licks, and the flavor of Chicago blues and narrative storytelling, many music historians consider Maybelline the first true rock and roll song. Berry quickly followed with a slew of other unique singles that continued to carve out the new genre of rock and roll. Roll Over Beethoven, Too Much Monkey Business, and Brown-Eyed Handsome Man, among others. Berry managed to achieve crossover appeal with white youths without alienating his black fans by mixing blues and R&B sounds with storytelling that spoke to the universal themes of youth. In the late 1950s, songs such as Johnny B. Good, Sweet Little 16, and Carol all managed to crack the top 10 of the pop charts by achieving equal popularity with youths on both sides of the racial divide. Berry's soaring music career was derailed again in 1961 when he was convicted under the Mann Act of illegally transporting a woman across state lines for, quote-unquote, immoral purposes. 3 years earlier, in 1958, Berry had opened Club Bandstand in the predominantly white business district of downtown St. Louis. The next year, while traveling in Mexico, he had met a 14-year-old waitress and brought her back to St. Louis to work at his club. However, he fired her only weeks later, and when she was then arrested for prostitution, charges were pressed against Berry that ended with him spending yet another 20 months in jail. When Berry was released from prison in 1963, he picked up right where he left off, writing and recording popular and innovative songs. His 1960s hits include Nadine, You Can Never Tell, Promised Land, and Dear Dad. Nevertheless, Berry was never the same man after his second stint in prison. Berry released one of his last albums of original music, Rocket, to fairly positive reviews in 1979. While Berry continued to perform into the 1990s, he would never recapture the magnetic energy and originality that had first catapulted him to fame during the 50s and 60s. Berry still remains one of the genre's most influential musicians. In 1985, he received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. A year later, in 1986, he became the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's first inductee. Perhaps the best measure of Berry's influence is the extent to which other popular artists have copied his work. The Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, and the Beatles have all covered various Chuck Berry songs, and Berry's influences, both subtle and profound, pervade all of their music. Berry died on March 18th of 2017 at the age of 90. He is remembered as a founding father of rock and roll whose pioneering career influenced generations of musicians. And that is the end of the episode this week. I hope that you enjoyed the episode, and I hope that you'll join me next week. And until then, keep glowing and keep growing. Bye. Thank you for joining me today on What in the Black History. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star rating on Spotify to help the show grow. You can also help the show grow by telling your friends, family, and coworkers to listen in. Stream What in the Black History on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And if you have any suggestions on little-known Black history facts that you think that I should do, email me at whatintheblackhistory@gmail.com. Bye.